In 1978, Bill Rasmussen got fired from his job as a sportscaster. A year later, he was standing in a muddy construction site in Bristol, Connecticut, armed with a vision, a 24-hour cable sports network. His wife thought he was out of his mind. So did the engineers responsible for building the satellite tech that made this possible. But on September 7, 1979, at 7 p.m., he flipped the switch. A grainy, slow-pitch softball game flickered onto a few thousand television sets. It looked like nothing, and it changed everything. That rap's mind created the era we are all currently living in, the global entertainment era. A kid in Lagos, Nigeria follows the same superstar someone in Los Angeles, California. A touchdown in Indianapolis sparks celebrations in Ireland seconds later. The screen in your pocket reaches more people than the biggest stadium ever could. But before we get there, let's rewind. Over the past 4 episodes, we've been following the origin of sports from the very beginning. Episode 1 showed how competition helped people survive. Every skill could mean another day alive. Episode 2 explored how games became part of religion, ceremony, and belief. Episode 3 followed sports into towns and villages where they brought communities together and gave people something to rally around. Episode 4 showed how organized leagues, standardized rules, and professional athletes turned competition into big business. And now we arrive at our final chapter. This is the story of the 5 revolutions that built the sports world we know today. The cable network nobody believed in, the athletes who became worldwide icons, the internet that gave every fan a voice, streaming that put live sports in your pocket, and the creator economy where anyone with a camera can reach millions. And it all started with one fired sportscaster who simply refused to accept the word no.
Whose world is this?
The world is yours. The world is yours.
It's mine, it's mine.
The aforementioned sports network was called ESPN. Maybe you heard of it. And Rasmussen's insight was deceptively simple. Sports don't begin and end with a whistle. They live beyond that in highlights, debates, and the slow motion replays that reveal the tremor in the shooter's wrist. ESPN turned sports into a 24-hour soap opera with box scores. By 1981, it was cable's fastest growing channel. Network executives who had dismissed it as a gimmick for insomniacs suddenly saw the truth. Live sports became one of the last events people could experience together. When the games kicked off, millions tuned in at the same moment, and that audience was worth a fortune. Then came the 1984 Olympics. A travel executive named Peter Ueberroth took over an event that had become a financial disaster. In 1976, the Montreal Olympics left the city buried under roughly $1 billion in debt. If Los Angeles was going to succeed, the motto had to be different. Ueberroth secured corporate sponsors on a scale nobody had seen before. He negotiated a record-breaking $225 million television deal with ABC. Events would be scheduled for primetime audiences. The opening ceremony felt more like a Hollywood production than a traditional sporting event, and that huge investment paid off. The Los Angeles Olympics finished with more than $200 million in profit, and for the first time, the people watching at home were every bit as valuable as the people sitting in the stadium. That realization reshaped sports. The stadium wasn't limited to concrete and steel anymore. If a television signal could reach your living room, you were part of the crowd. The NFL, the NBA, soccer leagues across Europe, they all leaned into televised deals, and they were worth billions. Selling tickets still mattered, of course, but the audience at home had become the biggest crowd of all. Then in 1992, the Dream Team showed up to the Olympics to show how far an audience could actually reach. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, among others, were the greatest collection of basketball talent ever assembled. They won every game by a margin of 44 points, just pure belt up and down the coast. But perhaps more importantly, they introduced the NBA to millions of new fans around the world. From Manila to Madrid, kids were watching the same players, wearing the same jerseys, and dreaming the same dreams. Before long, NBA games were reaching more than 200 countries. Television had turned local leagues into global entertainment, and another opportunity was about to take sports no television deal could ever.
Category bad. I'm the bar. Alien superstar. Whip, whip.
In 1984, Nike talent scout named Sonny Vaccaro walked into a boardroom with an idea that sounded impossible. Nike was known for running shoes. Basketball wasn't really their world, but Vaccaro wanted the company to put his entire basketball budget behind a rookie who had never played an NBA game. That rookie's name was Michael Jordan. Maybe you heard of him. Nike took the risk. They built a shoe around him, the Air Jordan. Maybe you've heard of it. Watch the movie Air for more details. I promise it's really good and it'll explain things a lot better than I can. The NBA tried to stop it, saying the shoes violated uniform rules, but Jordan kept wearing them and the league fined him $5,000 every single game. And guess what? Nike paid every single fine. Nike even turned the controversy into marketing. One commercial showed Jordan alone on the court, bouncing a basketball with a simple message. The NBA couldn't even stop people from wanting the shoes. Sales took off. The shoes became a worldwide phenomenon. Before long, Michael Jordan was bigger than basketball. People weren't buying sneakers, they were buying into Jordan. The athlete became the brand. They still are. By 2023, Jordan brand was bringing in $6.6 billion in yearly retail sales. God, Jordan had earned roughly $2.4 billion away from basketball, compared to only $94 million with an M he made on the court. Once the formula was set, it spread like wildfire, especially with Nike. Tiger Woods won the 1997 Masters by 12 strokes, bringing millions of new eyes to golf. He attracted sponsors, and fans who had rarely seen himself represented in the sport of golf took flight to it. Black people, mainly black people. Speaking of black people, Serena Williams did the exact same thing with tennis. She dominated opponents and was swimming in endorsements because of it, all while being an advocate on race, motherhood, and equality. Shout out to the good sister Serena. The athlete was no longer limited to the field, court, or course. Those same athletes who the leagues questioned whether they should pay decades prior could now become superstars in global businesses. But while athletes were building their brands through television, another revolution was waiting. The next person with a voice didn't need a network contract, they only needed an internet connection. In November 2008, NBA Hall of Famer and my personal favorite player ever, Shaquille O'Neal, sat in a diner and sent out his first tweet. Now, he had 0 followers on the platform at the time, but within a year, millions of people were following him. Shaq used the platform differently than most athletes before him. He joked with fans, he shared behind-the-scenes moments, he even invited people to meet him at random restaurants. The kaiju-sized superstar no longer had to wait for reporters to ask him a question, he could talk directly to the world, and that power started spreading. The old gatekeepers were losing their grip. Websites like Bleacher Report and Deadspin gave fans a place to write, argue, and report alongside traditional media. YouTube turned unforgettable moments into clips anyone could watch seconds later. And boy, do we love YouTube, right everyone? The greatest plays were no longer locked inside television broadcasts. They lived online, then social media rewrote the relationship between fans and sports. A supporter with a laptop could make highlight videos. A teenager with a phone could build a following that rivals the sports network's biggest star. A fan account could attract millions of people who shared the same passion. The path into sports media was no longer controlled by newspapers or television networks. The audience had a voice. Platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit turned every game into a worldwide conversation. We're about 2 sections away from TikTok, just give me a minute. A referee's call could be analyzed from every angle before the players even left the field. Athletes saw the reaction in real time. Fans created the jokes, the memes, the debates, and the moments that kept conversations alive long after the final whistle. The story of sports was no longer coming from a small group of people. Millions of fans were telling it. But while everyone was getting a voice, the biggest companies in the world were preparing for a new battle. The fight over where fans would watch. In 2017, Amazon executive Maria Donahue walked into a meeting with a crazy idea. A technology company known for selling books and draws wanted exclusive rights to Thursday Night Football. League owners were set in their ways and had their doubts, and streaming was still viewed by many as a young person's habit. But Amazon saw the numbers. Millions of households were leaving traditional cable every single year. The way people watch television was shifting. Amazon's first NFL deal cost $50 million a season. 5 years later, those same rights are worth around $1 billion a season. The message was clear. Live sports had become one of the most valuable pieces of entertainment on the planet, and every major tech company wanted a piece. Apple paid billions for Major League Soccer rights. Netflix, a company that essentially killed live programming, eventually entered the sports world with major deals of its own, from boxing to the NFL again. The reason was simple. Streaming removed the old limits. A fan no longer had to live near a team city. They didn't need to wait for highlights the next morning. They could watch their favorite players and favorite teams from almost anywhere. A soccer fan thousands of miles away could watch every match. A basketball fan could watch a playoff run from another continent. The distance between the athlete and the audience had disappeared, and the money followed. The NFL's television agreements beginning in 2023 averages now around 9 to 10 billion per year. Major leagues around the world saw massive growth through media deals, sponsorships, and merchandise. The sports industry had become global business worth trillions of dollars, but the biggest shift wasn't about where people watch, it was about how how they watch. Fans were moving away from one broadcast for everyone. They wanted control. They wanted access. They wanted sports whenever and wherever they wanted, and while companies fought over the screens, athletes were finding a way to create on their own. In the summer of 2021, LSU gymnast Olivia Dunn posted a video of herself doing a backflip. Within days, millions of people had seen it on TikTok. See, told you we get TikTok back in the video. The video wasn't from a television network, it wasn't part of a traditional sports broadcast, it came directly from the athlete, and that was the point. Dunn was competing on the highest level, all while building an audience, creating content, and turning that attention into business opportunities. Within months, she signed major sponsorship deals. But for years, college athletes weren't allowed to profit from their own popularity. The NCAA's amateurism rules kept athletes from earning money through their name, image, and likeness, even as schools generated massive revenue from college sports. I made a whole video about that a few weeks ago. Go watch it, I promise it's really good. Anyways, back to this video. A Supreme Court ruling in NCAA v. Austin forced the NCAA to change their name, image, and likeness policy, opening the door for athletes to earn from their own brands. After 100 years of NCAA hypocrisy, suddenly a college athlete could sign endorsement deals. They could build businesses. They could turn a following into income, and that same idea was spreading beyond the field of play. Athletes like LeBron James launched player-owned media companies. Athletes started hosting podcasts that competed with traditional studio shows. Fans built channels around analysis and behind-the-scenes content. A person with a camera and idea could reach millions without waiting for a network to give them permission. Sports media had become something anyone can participate in, and thank God or this video wouldn't exist. Locker room videos, fan reactions, post-game breakdowns filmed from bedrooms and parking lots. The conversation around sports now come from anywhere. The signal that started with Bill Rasmussen's softball broadcast in 1979 had grown into a worldwide conversation that was happening every second. And that brings us to the question at the center of this series.
The party never ends. In a motel land with my sands, yeah.
This series started with one simple idea. Sports help humans survive. A throw brought food home, a race tested strength, a skill passed down because it mattered. Then sports became something larger. They became rituals that connected people to their belief and tradition. They became community, from village competitions to pride where people carried on their jerseys. They became organized industries built on rules, leagues, stadium, and professional athletes. And now sports have become something, a worldwide experience shared by billions of people at the same time. The NFL generates nearly $20 billion a year. A sneaker built around a basketball player that hasn't played since 2003 still brings in billions of dollars in sales. A teenager with a phone can build an audience bigger than some of the TV network's biggest stars. Sports are no longer limited to a schedule, a broadcast, or a stadium. They exist everywhere, on screens, in conversation, through the people who play, watch, and create around them. The same human desire that started with a simple competition thousands of years ago is still here. People want to compete and belong. They want a story that we can all share. And because of all that, the game has become an empire of attention with no final whistle. Thank you for watching.